Let's bring him into the conversation. He's the publisher of the Inc. newsletter, also an MSNBC political analyst and author of the book Winners Take All. Anand, good morning. I want to read one of your tweets from a couple of days ago. You wrote, "When we speak of democracy ending, we tend to picture that moment as a bang, a stolen election, a coup. But maybe the end of democracy is a whimper. All of us getting used to the reality that even things that 90% of people want will not happen." There you're talking about all these proposed gun laws that we've been discussing this morning.
Yeah, I was listening to the footage you were showing of Republican senators talking about the sacred right to kill varmint and feral pigs. And then Matthew McConaughey telling the stories of those beautiful children whose photos we were just looking at. And it occurred to me that for much of the extreme political right in this country, children are varmint. And I want to say that very clearly. Children are varmint for a lot of the extreme right. And what I mean by that is if children are still in the womb, they enjoy the full faith and protection of the extreme right in this country. Anything should be done to protect them. But once children leave that womb, they are on their own in America in 2022. If it will not be a school shooting that gets them, it'll be a lack of COVID protection that gets them. It'll be a threadbare healthcare system that gets them. It'll be an economy that has no space for them to rise and grow. And so, yeah, the January 6th story is really important. And all of us who care about democracy, which is a fancy Greek word for the people watching this show getting to realize the kind of society they want to live in. January 6th is about the flashbang threat to democracy. Coups, terrorism, insurrection, violence, and that's really important. But there's another kind of evidence that we don't need subpoenas to elicit. Evidence all around us that our democracy is suffocating because when 90% of people, as you showed in that poll, want children not to be murdered in their school by guns, it doesn't happen. When most of us, an overwhelming number of us, would prefer that our grandchildren and great-grandchildren be able to live on a habitable planet, that doesn't get done, vetoed by the powerful, the wealthy, the well-connected. When most people want the security of knowing that if they get sick, they'd get taken care of, that doesn't get done. When most people in the pandemic wanted a little bit of help for what was beyond their power to control, that happened a little bit, not enough, and ran out. And so we have to really ask ourselves, there is an organized anti-democracy movement that represents a minority faction in this country that is successfully blocking things 90% of us want. We don't have a public opinion problem on a lot of these issues. We have a problem of the pro-democracy movement, the president, the White House, Democrats in Congress, not having the political fortitude to translate public opinion into results, how to use power, how to create moments out of tragedy the way LBJ did, how to provoke the way the right does, but for good, how to build power, amass power, and wield power, name villains, make things clear. We cannot have a milquetoast pro-democracy moment in this moment.
So let's talk, Anand, about a couple of things. Because, you know, we've talked about, we've had some debates on whether the system would hold. We had a great debate after Trump got elected. I think we were both right in some ways. It was actually much worse than I expected in some ways, much better than you expected in other ways. But let's just pull back. Because right now, let's look at the fact. Let's go to your argument. Mika and I, loved Madeleine Albright. Mika was at the funeral. I was watching on TV, and I'm glad I was, because there was a moment before the funeral where I saw Bill Clinton, Hillary Clinton, Al Gore, Joe Biden sitting on the front row. And it occurred to me that of all of those people sitting on the front row, half of them, well, they all won the popular vote. Half of them didn't get there. So Democrats have won the popular vote in 1992, 1996, 2000, 2008, 2012, 2016, 2020. And yet you've had 12 years of Republican rule during that time where those who didn't get the majority vote actually appointed a majority of the Supreme Court. So again, you've got minority views on the Supreme Court. So when I start asking, how could they overturn Roe, which 70% of Americans have supported for a very long time, a 50-year precedent, a 50-year constitutional right? Well, that's one way. The other thing has to do with the Senate, the United States Senate. Democrats will keep winning the majority of votes and for United States Senate races, and they'll continue to lose more seats because the way the system's set up. And even when they're in the majority like they are now, the filibuster is suffocating any legislation being passed. I mean, my feeling is, and it hasn't always been this way, but, you know, just like those senators in 1975 that said, wait a second, 67, it doesn't make sense anymore. Nothing's getting done here. The chamber's paralyzed. Let's move it from 67 to 60. We are now in a position in a hyper-political atmosphere where 60 doesn't work anymore. And I mean, you get rid of the filibuster or even move it down to 55, make an adjustment like senators made in 1975. At least majorities would have a shot at getting things done. Instead, right now, the Senate's a chamber that's used to kill the will of 90% of Americans, of 73% of Americans, of an overwhelming majority of Americans. So nothing gets done, and Washington is reduced to a forum of meaningless gestures.
You know, they say there's that saying, generals are always fighting the last war. I think small d Democrats are always looking for the last tyranny, on guard for the last tyranny. And I think a lot of Americans are looking at the fear of democracy's erosion and looking for things from other countries and other times and places. And that may not be what it looks like here. The end of democracy may or may not be a stolen election in 2024 or something like that. It may just be permanent minority rule. It might just be a faction that represents 10, 20, 30% of American public opinion on extreme issues, controlling through, as exactly you said, a Senate filibuster, through a minoritarian Supreme Court, where someone like Brett Kavanaugh declares a sovereign right over women's wombs. It may be just that things that most people want because they love their children are things the society keeps telling them, no, your children can't have. That is enough to qualify as the suffocation of democracy. And I think we need those of us who believe in democracy not just to say we believe in it. We need the president not just to give sober speeches about preserving it. We need a real war for democracy, because make no mistake, there is a war against it that is clear and unmistakable and powerful and well-funded. But I think those of us who believe in it have been complacent about it, have been passive about it. And if we want things that 90% of us want because we love our children, we're going to have to fight like hell in defense of the idea of getting them.
Well, and again, the way we do it, Jonathan Lemire, I say it on the show all the time, we do it politically. We do it peacefully. We do it whether you're a sane Republican, whether you're an independent, whether you're a Democrat. You do it by registering to vote. You get it by getting your neighbors to register to vote. You get it by voting. You get it by driving people to the ballot box. That is how it gets done. And I agree with Annan so much that Democrats have just got to get better at pointing out what's before us, the challenges before us. Campaigns are about alternatives. A versus B. Nixon versus Kennedy.
We started the show talking about safety.
Yeah. Nixon versus Kennedy. Trump versus Clinton. It's about choices. It's about distinctions. This should be very easy for Democrats. You've got a party that is standing in the way of what 88% of Americans want, according to our latest poll. They want universal background checks. Republicans won't even talk about it. And by the way, we're not talking about Republicans won't even vote on it. Let's be very clear here, because of the filibuster, Republicans are killing the ability to even take that vote, to have that debate, because they know they're in the minority. They know they would lose. And I bet they also know if that bill got to the floor, they would have to vote for it, because 90% of their constituents support it. So what do? They hide behind a filibuster. And for the life of me, I can't figure out why people who love democracy aren't saying sclerosis has completely overtaken our political system in Washington. It's time to get rid of the filibuster or at least push it down to 55 votes.